Here on the homestead, one thing we're learning over and over again is that establishing a proper infrastructure, especially when it comes to food security, is critical to success. Let me show you what we're talking about. Here we are standing right in the middle of what should be food production. Y'all may not remember this area. We'll go ahead and put the video up here. This is where Marty and I, several months ago, planted some elderberries. So the elderberries were plants that we were bringing from the other property. So as we were moving, we clipped a bunch of sticks off of the elderberry specifically so we could bring those two plants that we had here to this property. And, well, like always, we went overboard. We didn't bring just two plants. We brought a lot of those two plants. So we ended up planting about 70 elderberries out here. And then y'all, we went and forgot about them. Now at the time we were planting them while winter was setting in. It was about to get really cold. It turned out to be a pretty nasty winter. All of this was covered in a sheet of ice. I fell 3 times throughout the winter just trying to make it around on the property. So we never came back out here really to check on these elderberries throughout that season. Then the springtime hit, and we've had plenty of work going on in the garden and fixing chicken coops like we just finished and taking care of things in the barn. And we haven't paid any attention to these elderberries. Well, this is a part of our food security. It is our food infrastructure. These are going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 years before we're getting a consistent and even-handed harvest that we can count on. And you can go and do your research on elderberry. Y'all are going to find all kinds of information about how helpful other people have found them when it comes to things like their immune system. But the reality is, y'all, these things just taste good. We love the elderberry jam. It is absolutely delicious. We like to mix the berries. So we'll mix blueberries, blackberries, and then the elderberry in on top of that to make a jam. And the flavor profile is absolutely amazing. That's why we have so many elderberries planted in the ground out here. So this food and this food production is critical to our long-term success here as homesteaders. And we've neglected it. It has gotten overgrown, as you can see. There is no visible elderberry growing out here. And to give you some idea what it should look like, take a look over here at the fence line. This is a wild elderberry that just happened to grow right here in the fence line. And we didn't even know the plant was here. So all of these stems that are growing currently were just bare sticks, probably down near the dirt line, all winter long. We didn't even recognize it until we came out here to start figuring out where our elderberries had gone. So this is what we should be seeing out here in the tall grass. And it's just not there. We can't find it. So we're on a quest. We have been for the last couple of days to identify where all of our elderberries went, figure out just which ones are healthy enough to save. So the good news is I was at least consistent about how we planted these. So they did go in rows, and I did use my shovel when measuring things out. So it is actually a shovel handle length that determines the distance between the plants. So I can find one plant and then use the shovel to get a general idea where I might find the next plant. So what we're doing is I'm trying to find these little sticks that are poking up through the grass, and then I'm clearing the grass away from it. We suspect the biggest reason why these elderberry aren't growing is they're not getting any sunlight. This may seem like bad news, and I suppose it is bad news for the elderberry, but it's great news for the sheep we might be bringing in here at some point. So this is Kentucky bluegrass, along with several other different orchard grasses and good pasture grasses. And there's a ton of clover in here as well. And it is a very thick mat of grass. Really good food for ruminant animals. So that's encouraging. Now that I've cleared this off a little bit, we're going to come back through here and I'm going to put a cardboard cover over the top of this to knock the grass down around the stem so that everything stays cleared at least within 8 inches of the stem. mostly so that we can see it, but also so that it gets plenty of sunlight. And I'm going to throw some compost on top of that cardboard. That'll help to rot the cardboard quickly and also provide some fertilizer for any elderberries that do happen to be growing. But most of them we're finding, at least in this particular row, are kind of like this one. And you can tell by how loose this is that this is not living. In fact, it just pulls right out of the dirt. So that one's not going to make it. So we're going to have to redo quite a few of these. So this is an example of one of the plants that's doing okay in that it is at least solidly connected to the earth, meaning there's some good roots down there. Now it may eventually pop up, and that's what we're kind of hoping for. I'm going to use this cardboard to knock the grass down around the plant, and we're going to cover that with the compost, also to provide fertilizer for the plant. But it also helps us to mark this so that we can keep the grass cut down away from the plants to make sure they maintain their connection to the sunlight. So this is what happens when you get a couple of weeks worth of rain here in Kentucky in springtime. We had been concerned we weren't getting any rain. All of a sudden we've had a couple of weeks worth, and it's really hard now to even look through this grass. It's gotten so tall and so thick. So yeah, again, we're excited about that, but it is making this more difficult. Here I know is where the next elderberry used to be, and there's no stem or stick here to let me know that, but there is some potting mix here. So vermiculite is not common in the Kentucky soil, so this is definitely one of the places that we planted an elderberry. There's just nothing there now.
Okay.
And we're not concerned that we do have plants in here that didn't make it. We knew we weren't going to get all of these plants through. Now we are a little disappointed that it's so few of them. We'll show you what we're talking about here in a minute. But it's easy to propagate elderberry. So even the one bush that we found just over there on the tree line, we can, at the end of the season, cut that into enough sticks that we could grow 10, 15 more plants off of that plant. So we're not really that concerned about the number of elderberries so much as we are the ability to continue producing more elderberries. And again, it's going to take us 2 or 3 years to get to peak production on these things. So the more we get in the first year, the better off we're going to be. So the sooner we get them growing, the sooner we get to a very stable food infrastructure, which is really where food security comes from. And you'll want to pay attention to that if you're starting your own homestead. Keep in mind, your garden is going to be important. That's where year after year you're going to get the vegetables you need for food. But it's these perennial plants, the ones that come back every year and produce a harvest for you every year, that are going to be the mainstay, your staples. They're going to hold you through the wintertime. Those are the ones you really want to pay attention to when you're setting up your new infrastructure. What makes the homestead is going to be the long-term investment you have in the land. And that investment is going to come through these perennial plants. All right, and this is what we've been out here looking for, and we're going to spend the rest of the day out here looking for. It looks like nothing but grass, but looking down in here, you can see the cut end of a stick. So there's the elderberry stump that we planted, and growing right here next to it is the new shoot. So there's our new elderberry tree just coming up out of the grass here. And if we don't get this grass cut out around this little tiny sapling here, it's not going to make it. It needs that sunshine. So that's why we're out here doing this. And there you go. The uncovered elderberry, all good to go. And we'll do something to protect it. We're going to put some cardboard down around this thing. You may be asking yourself, so what's the point? Why would we bother doing all of this? And I would say we're accepting responsibility for our own food. And we know we like elderberry, and we're willing to be responsible enough for our own food to make sure that we have plenty of it, including coming out here and salvaging even one tiny little plant if that's all we can find out here in the tall grass. It's worth it to us. I'm just curious, what do you like to eat? What food is it worth to you to take the responsibility to go out there and grow? Because that's what you need to be thinking about right now, is that food and how you're going to produce it and make sure you have it in your pantry and in your kitchen. It doesn't matter if you have 6 acres in Kentucky, or maybe you only have a 1/4 acre at the end of a 30-year-old cul-de-sac in southern Alabama. I don't know where you live. But what I do know is that there's some land that you have available to you that you could be growing on. And there's got to be some food that you enjoy so much that you'd want to take the time to get out there and grow it. It's really about accepting responsibility and pulling that back onto your own shoulders. Stop pushing it off on society. If society has a problem with their food supply and you're putting all of your dependence on that, you're going with everyone else. If you take a little bit of that responsibility back and at least grow the food you enjoy and the food you know you're going to need, then you won't have to worry about that portion of it anyway. So the point would be, no matter where you're at, it's time. You need to return to the land, get yourself some ground to grow on. You need to return to the labor and start getting your hands dirty. Get down here in the dirt and start growing the plants that'll produce the food you want to eat. And then return to life. Get busy enjoying the work. This is fun. This is what we're going to do all day today, and I'm enjoying every single minute of it. Come on out here and join us. So after a little bit of time on the lawnmower, just to knock the grass down, we've gotten down to a final count anyway. So out of the 70 that we started with, we found all 70 locations that we put sticks in the ground, and we found 30 of them that were worth protecting and trying to get to grow. So that's a little bit of a disappointment. We lost more than half, but 30 plants is still a lot of elderberries. Now, they're not going to produce any fruit for us this year. It'll be next year before we get any fruit off of these, so we're really glad to see the one wild one over here on the fence line. At least we'll have some elderberries this year. And it's in full bloom, so that tells me that they'll grow well here. We just had to get them an opportunity. We had to get them cleared. So yet again, here you see us repairing infrastructure already. We haven't even been here a full year. It's only been 7 months on the property, and already we're having to repair infrastructure that we had already put in place. It's an ongoing process as a homesteader, and it's an ongoing process if you want to be responsible for your own food security. The only way these plants are going to survive is if we put the time and effort into them. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the food that you want to make sure you have available to you. What are you willing to put the time and effort into? Once you make that decision, get out there and get busy. It's time for you to return to the land, return to labor, and return to life. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please just take a moment, go ahead and subscribe for us. So while you're in there subscribing to the channel, also jump into the comments section. Let us know in there what food is so important to you, you might be willing to take up responsibility for growing it for yourself. Be interesting to see what other people think. We'll see you next time.